I don't know how to describe it other than like a demon type of sound.
But it's silhouetted, hulking, every bit of 5.5 feet wide, 13 to 14 foot tall, pitch black.
The one thing that ran through my mind when I had this encounter was I don't have a big enough gun.
Your host, two-time witness and field researcher for more than 40 years, William Jevning. Welcome to Creek Devil.
Hello everyone, welcome to another edition of Creek Devil. We're really happy to have Joe and Walter in Texas joining us. They have an update, some stuff going on. Fellas, how you doing?
We're doing pretty good, at least I am. How about you, Walter?
Oh, I'm doing great.
Well, I guess the only way to approach this is you sent us some pictures and some stuff happened recently, so I'm just going to turn the microphone over to you guys and tell us what happened.
Well, we went out camping, about a month ago, Walter?
Yeah,
we went out camping. We set out some mics, some recorders. We got some pretty good vocals on that trip, I guess. That whole place where Walter had his experience, his encounter, really, it's just such a weird place. And then Walter went out like 2 weeks after that, and he found something interesting, right, Walter? Tell him about what the tree break you found.
well, on the way in to our side, there's like I said before, there's no exit except for the one road that you used to come in, and about, I would say, 10 yards from where we park, there's a branch that was above the road, and it's a pretty good thick-sized branch. It seemed like it was twisted and thrown in the middle of the road. Kind of, I don't know, I guess I felt like kind of a stay away kind of deal.
Right. And so when I went back, it's definitely covering more than half the road. The picture really don't do it justice. But yeah, it's definitely covering more than half the road. You got to, there's barely enough room for the truck to get around. And it just happened so quickly. And it's right in that area that where Walter had his encounter. We did some walking around there last Saturday, and we found some what looked like prints, and we weren't really sure at first what the heck kind of prints they were. And it wasn't until after I got home I started to really, really think about it. I'm like, dude, these got to be knuckle prints, And so we went back there. No, we went there on Friday, and then Saturday when we went back there, that's when we wound up casting them. And these they were at least 4.5 feet apart, maybe even closer to 5. So whatever it was, it had a big stride. It almost looked like a hoof print, but whatever it was, it left ridges like knuckles, and it certainly like dug up the ground like it was, pushing off. And the one thing also I'll say is that me and Walter and even Lupe walked that area, and we didn't make any kind of impression on the ground other than the surface, right, Walter?
Right.
Yeah, those impressions look like 5 digits. You can count the impressions.
Right. And Walter actually had to dig his boot into the ground to make an impression like that, because even though it's sandy, it was very hard. It was very compact sand. And
I was trying to try to see. I mean, if somebody walked through here, trying to debunk whatever it could have been before.
And if it was a human, I mean, they would have had to been walking on their tiptoes, and you're talking about a 5-foot stride on your tiptoes, or maybe 4.5 to 5 foot stride on your tiptoes, and at the same time digging into the ground. I think even the person that was running wouldn't have been able to create that. And like I said, there was clearly what looked like digits,
Yeah.
And the very first one wasn't that deep, but the other 3 were. And I'm thinking that first one, if this is one of those creatures, that's when it initially got down on all fours, we all seem to have the same opinion that it happened that day, and we were even wondering if it happened because it was on the opposite side of that road that we were on, and we were even thinking, man, I wonder if while we were on the other side of the forest, if it came from to kind of check up and see what we were doing, you know. So that was kind of scary because, I mean, they were fresh, Will. I'm saying they had to have been that same day, if not within the time that we were there.
Yeah,
I don't think they were there when we got there.
the pictures look fresh.
Yeah. And like I said, I mean, they were just, that ground was so compact, it almost had like a crusty layer to it, if that makes sense. And you could tell where that layer broke, and it just looked so fresh. And like I said, even Lupe was like, man, this happened today, and Lupe is a good tracker as you'll find, he really knows the outdoors. And man, that guy, you got to keep an eye on him, right, Walter? He would disappear in a heartbeat.
I turned around at once and I told you, man, this guy's a pirate.
Hey, Joe.
Hey.
Walter, quick question. I'm looking at this picture and the one where you're straddling, and I see that it definitely looks like, like a handprint, not a handprint, but where it would have almost scraped with some fingers. It looks like, now is this a riverbed or what's all the sand from?
I think it's maybe from a previous rain, because it had rained. It's been raining here for like 3 months.
You took the words out of my mouth. That was my next question. The sand is pockmarked. It looks like a recent rain there.
Yeah, it's been raining here off and on for like the last 3 months, probably all year, really. So I'm thinking it's from just settlement that's kind of flowed downhill.
The important thing is if you look at that picture, your right foot is just, right in front of it is that hand mark or scrape mark from, knuckles or whatever. All the sand around it, I just want to point this out, has that appearance of being pockmarked,
right,
by rainfall, but that isn't. So that was well after whatever rain. I don't know when it rained. Was it that day or?
It had probably been about 3 or 4 days previously that it had rained.
Okay, yeah. So those are real fresh marks.
Yeah. So we left some recorders there, and we left some, but maybe 2 or 3 miles down the road, Walter, at that little bridge. So the next morning, we're going, and I've been to this site, I don't know how many times, 7, 8 times, I guess, already. I've never gotten nervous there. We're going over there, and we're talking just like normal. And right before we get to that tree break, man, that was the first time in like 3 years that I really, really got kind of nervous, almost to the point of being scared. I just felt like the insides were trembling. My hands were just about to get ready to shake. I was clenching my jaw, and I told Walter, I said, hey, man, I'm feeling very weird. I haven't felt like this in a long time. And that put him on high alert too. So we get to the site, and I'm like, dude, let's just get our recorders and let's get out of here. Well, after we cast the tracks, we wanted to make sure we casted those tracks, and I'm calling them tracks because they are some kind of track,
With this tree that's broken, was it twisted? It looks like it's twisted.
Yeah. It's definitely twisted. Yeah, It looks like something just ringed it, almost like a wash towel. It's definitely got a twist to it.
Do you remember how? 2 questions, I guess. How far off the ground this was, and how thick? How thick is the branch?
And, I bet that thing was every bit of 12 feet off the ground.
Okay.
How big around? I don't know, 4 inches, right in that ballpark. It was at least that, I'd say.
That's pretty thick.
Yeah. And that tree is green, as you can tell. It's a green tree.
It looks freshly done.
Yeah. So, like I said, we were there a month ago. Walter saw that tree 2 weeks later, and then this is 2 weeks after that. So within that amount of time that that tree was broken, and it's still very, very green. All the leaves are still very green from the 2 weeks previously to when Walter saw it. And there's no other damage to any of the trees there. And we did find a lot of trees that are just like snapped off at the top, especially like these. I guess they're saplings. They're probably a good 3-4 inches around too, and they're just snapped. About 7-8 foot high off the ground. And They're, like I said, they're probably 3, 4, maybe 5 inch in diameter, and they're just snapped. I don't know what could have went up there and twisted that tree, but we measured where Walter saw that his, and it was 9.5 feet, Will. Because I think I told you from the last time we were on that there was like a white mark on a tree, and it's actually like a fungus. I asked Lupe about that, and he said, yeah, because that's a fungus. And that's where his head was at, so that we had a good measuring spot for it, and we measured it when we went out camping a month ago, and it was 9.5 feet tall. So that could have easily reached up and twisted that branch if that's what the same creature did that twisted that branch.
And right across from it is those 3 tree branches that are snapped.
Yeah.
And then they're put together like 3 different trees. They were snapped and just bent weird.
And there's one tree that we were examining where, like I said, the top part of it was broken, and it was a pretty green tree too. And it was laying on the ground. We thought this other tree was part of it, but it's not. So we don't even know where this other part came from. And it was stabbed into the ground. What, Walter, about good 5 inches into the ground?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it was stabbed like a javelin, and so we don't even know where that tree came from because there was no other trees around, that perimeter that we found them.
Did you guys get a picture of that one?
I didn't take a picture, but you did, Walter?
Yeah, I have pictures.
Okay.
Can you send that? And the reason I asked is because we talked to some guys recently in Australia, and that's one of the things that they found was in an area where there's, they're convinced that there's no people there, and there's just a trail every so often of one of these sticks stuck in the ground, and it could not have happened naturally. It couldn't have fallen that way. It would have, if it fell, it's going to land on its side. So that's why I'd like to see the picture. That is really very compelling information.
And so while we were there getting our recorders and waiting for the plaster to dry on the prints, I went down the road because I actually put my recorder not that far away from that tree break. I just want to leave a recorder over there, and I only left the thing off the road, like maybe 3 feet off the road, and just reaching into that little forest area right there to get my recorder, man, I was nervous. I was really nervous, and Walter goes, well, we still gotta go get mine. He left his even further back in the woods, maybe by like 60 feet or so, and yeah, I was nervous going in there, the whole time. Then we got back to the truck, and there's like a little clearing where we park because it's at a dead end. And so we got back there. We were just standing around in that open, and I told him, this is not a very big opening, but man, I felt just so much better staying there than being in the woods that day. And then we heard what sounded like something very heavy getting thrown and hitting the ground. We didn't go investigate to see what it was because I was on edge and I wasn't about to go see what it was, but something was definitely, I'd say, thrown at us. And also, but maybe 5 minutes before that is when we heard the murmur, right, Walter?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And we both turned around and looked at each other. I'm like, man, did you hear that? And he's like, yeah, I heard it. And I said, it sounded like somebody was talking, right? But it just sounded like one being rather than two. It just sounded just like a murmur, and we couldn't understand what the hell was being said. But yeah, so we were kind of nervous on that day. At least I was.
Well, I felt like puking.
Yeah, it was. It was kind of scary. That's the first time I felt like that in quite a few years, at least 3 years. I used to go in there pretty happy-go-lucky. I mean, I'm looking for sign. I'm looking on the ground, looking up in the trees, and Saturday morning, my head was just on a swivel. I was just looking around and just trying to watch everything.
What do you think the distance was? How far away was the murmur? Like 10 yards, 50 yards?
I don't think it sounded too far. I think it sounded close enough for us to be worried and far enough where we should have gotten the heck out.
Yeah, if I had to put a number on it, I'd say 60, 70 feet. It wasn't far at all because it was It was a pretty clear murmur. It was pretty clear, you know, and
That's pretty close.
yeah. It sounded like it was trying to be quiet, but it was close enough to where we heard it.
But and he threw that log at us, and I turned
It was on
around
the other direction, yeah.
and I asked you, "Was that you?" And you're looking at me like, "What the hell? No!" and he's standing right next to me, but he just sounded like they threw something in our general direction.
Yeah, like I said, we were like in a little opening, and it landed right in the edge of the forest, you know. And I'd say something was thrown, because if something would fell out of the tree, you would have heard it hitting the branches, you know. But you just heard it go boom, you know. It sounded like, you know, you could hear the whistling as it was going through the air, and it hit the ground.
Yeah.
And like I said, but then we found like this big chunk of concrete in the back of the woods. Also, it had nothing to do with it had nothing to do with what was thrown, but we just thought it was kind of weird that we found this big chunk of concrete in the out in the woods. That, you know, it could have came from anyone, I guess, but why would anyone carry a big old chunk of concrete? You know, it looked like the chunk of concrete, like when people put a post, you know, how it kind of has a round shape to it for the hole. That's what it looked like. And like it had been in the ground at some time. It was only like maybe like half of it. Like, who's carrying around chunks of concrete in the woods? Yeah, but that was.
And there's no other chunks or no other.
No,
not at all.
Yeah, no. You know,
It seemed really out of place. Yeah. It was just completely out of place.
And then, you know, we did find an area that was flattened out. It was a big area full of pine needles and leaves. It was just, everything was just so flat there. It looked like something had been laying there. And I'm not saying it was big or nothing like that, but hogs would have tore up that ground, and we didn't see any sign of hogs. And in that particular area, I don't know if I've seen any kind of sign of hog out there. I've seen deer out there for sure, but I haven't seen any hogs out there. And this whole area looked like it was just matted down. It was a pretty big area, maybe, I don't know, 8 by 8 feet, right?
Yeah. And it wasn't like that before when we went there those 2 weeks ago.
Yeah. We took a picture of that.
And lush and, you know, covered in little trees and whatever.
And that wasn't too far from the track way either, from the prints that we got. I mean, it was, you know, man, 15, 20 feet maybe away.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it wasn't very far from that either. So that whole area, man, it's just it's got a weird vibe to it. I think it's a good area, and you know, we definitely have plans of going out there again. And I'm really trying to hope that we could contact somebody to let us camp out there, because a lot of that place is a private property. But that's what we really want to do, is go out there and just camp and see what happens.
So the area that you're in, you know, with the knuckle prints and all that, that's private. Do you have to get permission first to camp there, or I'm speaking not camp, but to hike on the property?
Yeah, I think so. But this is right off the road, so we were like, no, we're going.
Oh, okay, yeah. Gotcha. So all this stuff that we're looking at here is close to a road, right? Is it like a gravel road or paved road? Or?
It's a dirt road. Yeah. It's off dirt. It's got those little bitty, I forget what you call that, those little bitty rocks. So that when they put it down,
right?
But they put that down at some areas, and the rest of the area, man, I guess a good mile in, it's nothing but dirt road.
Yeah. Well, the reason I ask is a lot of animals use the power cuts and the roads and stuff, because it's, you know, path of least resistance, right. And it would just make sense that these would do the same thing.
Right. Yeah. Because I've seen deer on that road. I was driving down it, and there was like, man, I don't know, 4 or 5 deer just walking down in front of me. They didn't have a care in the world that I was coming up behind them. And then not till I got closer, they finally, you know, ran into the woods. But yeah, they didn't care.
Except for when we were leaving.
Oh yeah, when we were leaving.
2 deer running for their lives, and they just jumped the road. And then you had the window down, and it sounded like something was after it, didn't it?
Yeah, I heard a sound like a branch, you know, snapping or breaking after we stopped the truck, and I started recording. But you couldn't hear nothing because your engine was running. Yeah, but that was the only time I think I've seen deer running that whole area. That Saturday morning we were leaving. So this maybe kind of added to the mystery, I guess.
So do you think they were something was in pursuit?
Well, they were spooked. I know that much. I mean, they were running. They weren't galloping. They weren't walking. I mean, they were moving.
And I've never seen them do that before. Usually, you drive right past them and they just stand there and look at you.
Yeah, right on the side of the road, they'll stare at you.
They really couldn't care less. But this time, no. This time they were running from something.
Yeah, it had nothing to do with you guys.
I mean, if I would have stopped them, they would have probably hit the truck.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that second one probably would have hit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is an area that you guys have checked out in the past quite a bit, right?
Since Walter's encounter, yeah. Yeah, it's a good area, and I like it. And, we always get something good on the recorders. Even Walter, like I said, he left his recorder there, and I left one further out. And he got some pretty good, what sound like screams. And I got a couple of wood knocks on mine. The one I left by the bridge that was further out. I got a couple of wood knocks on that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And those, when you hear the wood knocks, they're originating from, well, out in the trees or out in the woods somewhere.
Yeah.
Let me do this. Can you recap Walter's encounter? We have a lot of new listeners out there, and they would love to hear, the highlights of that.
It was in November 8th, I believe. We got there. It was a group of 3 people. We got there and, we had the idea of, searching the woods for the famous Bigfoot, which I had no knowledge about at this point in time. And as we're talking to each other and, getting our equipment ready, a guy shows up in a pickup, gets out and says, you guys okay? Yeah, we're fine. Oh, you're looking for Bigfoot. And that struck us as very, very odd. Long story short, he offered to take us somewhere to see the Bigfoot against our better judgment. We said, yeah, sure, why not? Like, as if it was a good idea. And so we drive down a little bit ways down the road. Nothing happened there, so he offered again. Again, we say yes. And once we got off the vehicles, I started walking to the right side of the road of the forest, and there was a tree that's on the creek that's almost on top of the creek, and so it's at an angle. And there was a big scat, about a Coke can size kind of scat, and I was trying to make sense of it because I've seen a lot of scat before from other animals. It doesn't compare at all to a bear scat. It's nothing like it. And as we're looking at it, we received this low growl from across the creek, a growl that was so it was the most disturbing thing you could hear. It wasn't a scream. It was like a growl, like a possessed lion or some kind of demon. And with each growl, your rib cage would vibrate to the sound. And man, I've never heard anything that scary. So I have the brilliant idea to jump on the creek, because at that time it didn't have that much water, and try to find some prints. And it was like I cursed at it. It started growling even more. And everybody's saying, "Oh, don't be dumb, get out of there. It's going to eat you, whatever. It's going to kill you. You're crazy. Get out of there." So he did a really, really loud growl. And that one just scared the heck out of me. And we all got out of there, and we massed kind of in the middle of the road where we parked the vehicles. And that's where all the sounds started going off. They started imitating cows and coyotes and, all kinds of sounds. And it was just hard to figure out, man, what the hell is that? Because it would do a cow, but at the end it would get excited and it would do like a simian rah. And then you would hear the coyotes howl, and, and at the end it started as a howl, so it would go like oh, and then woo, 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 woo. Like it would get like I don't know, like a simian type of scream, and it got very scary. We got objects thrown at us. I mean, you could hear them. They had to be doing it on purpose, of course, to let us know that we're there. But I felt like they were funneling us away from the main road, and kind of in a V-shaped type of hunt, and it was scary. I mean, I've never been that scared in my life. I almost lost my mind, and somebody yelled, "There, there!" So I instantly told everybody stay together, and I grabbed my gun and I'm pointing out in the middle of the forest to the left side of us. I would say maybe 8:30 to 9 o'clock. And out of this big, thick tree, this head bobs out and kind of takes a look at me, and I just froze. I've never seen anything quite like that. He kind of hides back again, shows his head again, looks at me, and gives me that up and down look, and I just feel every inch of my body frozen. And at this point, I know all I'm going to do with this gun is just piss it off, and it's going to kill me. It's going to shred me to little pieces. And I've never felt that impending fear of death. Like I felt like that was my last day alive. And I holstered the gun, and he does this one more time, and you could see his shoulders were probably about 5 feet apart. I mean, they were so wide. You could see them on each side of the tree. And I put my hands up in the air, and I start saying, okay, I'm done. I'm dead. I'm done. And I start walking back to the middle, and I'm just waiting for this thing to grab me and absolutely shred me to pieces. And, well, luckily for me, that didn't happen. But we got in our cars and we took off. But that was, wow.
What are you thinking before you see the thing? You're hearing these howls that go into this simian whoop, whoop, whoop. You've obviously never heard that before. It's something new. What's going through your mind when you hear this? What are you thinking? What are you feeling?
Well, it's a constant internal struggle, if that makes any sense, because I've been hunting before in the forest, and I've heard the animals actually make the real sounds, and it's mind baffling. You're just sitting there and you're like, did I just hear what I think I heard? I mean, I know that's not a cow because that's not how cows move, but it was pretty darn close. And once you start hearing the simian and the screams attached to it, wow. It's like, it's just amazement and you being scared to death, a mix. It was just terrifying.
And this is the first time you've heard anything like this, and then you continue on, and then you see the creature. So
Correct.
You really don't have a frame of reference in your past to compare this with, right?
No, not at all. It was the most terrifying thing because, I mean, like you just said, there's nothing in my mind to compare it to or to go off of. I mean, what am I looking at? I mean, I've never seen anything. I mean, it's this thing gave me nightmares for the longest time. And actually, Joe is the one that helped me kind of get through it. And if it wasn't for Joe, I wouldn't be even doing this.
You're welcome, I guess. From the first couple times that I went out with Walter, I mean, I could see how much. Matter of fact, we were talking about this, weren't we, Walter?
Yeah.
And I could see I could see how much he's overcome because even when those deer ran out in front of us, he stopped the truck pretty quick, but he didn't lock it up like he did the first time when we saw a squirrel run out in front of the truck, and he locked them. He locked them up. I'm really. I laugh about it when I say it, but I'm glad I had my seatbelt on that day because I probably would have went through the windshield. But Yeah, even though he did stop hard when the deer ran out in front of us, it wasn't like it was when he first went out there. And I was telling him that when he first went out there with him, I mean, he was like rubbing his pant legs. You know, like if your pants get sweaty, you kind of wipe them off. I mean, he was just walking around like that, just rubbing his. He didn't even realize he was doing it. I was telling him. I said, you don't do that anymore. He's like, I was doing it. I'm like, yeah, I could just see how tense you were, you know. And so he's gotten a lot better. Yeah. So I'm glad for that. You know, I'm happy for him that he seems to be getting better on, you know, as far as getting too tense out there and you know, getting let fear get the best of you, because you know, like I said, I was scared Saturday. You know, I was definitely on edge, but I still was out there and I was still looking around and, you know, trying to play it cool, I guess. You know.
It was, but I'm gonna say it was kind of hard to stay cool that day because it was just in the air. I mean, sometimes you just get this weird feeling, and I hadn't gotten that in a long time, and I just felt like vomiting. That day was weird, and then, like you said, you know, we heard that murmur, and then that object that was thrown at us. I mean, I honestly think that when we went to the left side, which is the side where I had the encounter, and we started actually following that creek, I think that they came from the other side and they were like keeping tabs on us at a safe distance.
Right. And that would explain why they were on their all fours. You know, that's what explain why they were on their knuckles. Because, you know, if they were standing up, we would have been able to see them. Because even there were points back, even though we were pretty far back in the creek, I could still see the truck. You know, and so yes, I mean, but if they were on their fours, we would have never seen it. I don't want to say them, but definitely at least one.
Joe, I sent you the picture. I don't know if you can send it to Tom.
Yeah, I'll send it to him after the show. Yeah, I'll definitely send it to him.
And on the recorder, like Joe said, I think it was at 7 hours and 56 minutes that everything started. You could hear a tree knock. And at first I thought it was like somebody shot or something, because that's how loud it was. It sounded like a shot. And then you can hear, and I've been really thinking about this. It sounded like there were two female Sasquatches yelling and screaming at each other. I mean, it's just, and it goes on for quite a while. And they're just yelling at each other back and forth. And then at some point, you hear a male just do one loud scream, and then everything stopped. So I'm not sure what was going on, but I mean,
what was it that made you think it was female? Was it the tone of voice, or
the tone, the tone of the? I mean, I can send you the recording so you can hear it.
Oh, I'd love to. Yeah, absolutely. And I'm looking at the picture. This is the one of the where you're talking about the tree branches. It's kind of wrung like a wet towel. Only it's taken back. It's funny because the tree it's green. It's a real fresh break or twist or whatever. But they've shoved half that tree on the ground.
Yep.
And it's very thick vegetation in there. I would say just beyond that tree, you don't have any more than 10 or 15 feet visibility.
Correct.
Yeah, and I just want to kind of let everyone know that, like I said, it happened within the last month. And, you know, we haven't had any kind of hurricanes. We certainly haven't had any kind of freeze. You know, even tornadoes would have, you know, left a path of destruction throughout the forest.
Well, right, it's exactly. They're not selective. This is one tree chosen.
And even if it was like an 18-wheeler, which I don't think an 18-wheeler would fit down this road, but it would have hit a lot more trees, you know, on the way in, and I don't know how it would turn around and get out, but you know.
Yeah, I mean, the whole forest looks completely normal until you look at that single branch. It seems like something twisted it, and just left it there, you're not coming in, period.
And like I said, in one of the pictures that I posted in the group of the branch, hanging down and actually touching the ground, it's we were very much inside, what I would call the encounter zone. That's where we were sitting. We're sitting in the truck, and we're still very much inside where you had this encounter.
And this is the same area where you guys put your recorders.
Right.
Okay.
Right. Yeah. And then, do y'all remember that growl I sent you guys? Didn't I send you the growl I heard? Or I actually got on recording.
No, I don't remember.
I think I sent it to Will. I think there was a growl. If not, I'll resend that to Will and let you hear it. And this is like in February? I think it was in February, like right before Valentine's Day, as a matter of fact. And it was cold, and some of the people I let listen to it were like, man, that sounds like a gator almost, but the gators weren't out at that time. It was way too cold. It was still very much wintertime. And yeah.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. That's right.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Well, actually, I think that growl came off of your recorder. Was it your recorder or my recorder? I don't remember. But
no, that was yours.
Okay. And yeah, I mean, it was cold. Those. Well, during that whole winter, we had a cold winter here, so the gators hadn't even come out yet, and there's still no sign of gators in that creek. You can see where the gators come in and out of creeks or lakes or what have you, and there's no sign at all of any kind of gator.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking about that story, or the encounter where the thing growled at you, and you said it was almost like a projected growl,
right?
Directed at you.
Definitely.
Well, let me tell you something. Here in Oregon, my buddy and I, this was a year ago, 2 days ago. So it was early August of 2020, and he had the exact same situation. I was in front of my truck, and so the engine was running, so I didn't hear it, but all of a sudden he just comes running over and says, we need to get in, we need to get going now. And I know what we're doing, and I know where we're at, so I'm not going to ask questions. And he said that he had, and we were inspecting some scat in the middle road. And we're using a paper plate as a kind of a scale for the, for the picture. Anyway, he threw it in the back of the truck, and he said this thing growled at him from forest. And he's been elk hunting for 30 years, and he'd never heard anything like it. It said it was presence objectionable, it was disturbed, and it wanted him gone. So it's virtually very similar to the story that you guys situation you encountered.
Yeah. Yeah, that was one of my famous stories, I guess you could say, the growl that I got, that was we were at a different location, altered to that location. That's when I had the dog whistle. I don't know if you remember that story or not, Tom, but I was blowing on on a dog whistle when I got that growl. Me and my buddies that we were with, we got that growl. It was like it went from point A to point B.
Tell me about it. Let's hear that story. Let's give us.
Well, I was out there with my buddy Ernie and Shane, and we stopped at this area that pretty popular area that everyone goes to, and I had a dog whistle, and someone had told me to try it, and I was like, okay, I'll try it, and I blew it like 4 or 5 times, and as soon as I finished, we got this growl, and it was so loud, but it didn't fill up the forest loud. It was like it came from point A to point B right at us, like it was definitely directed from us, and it was probably a couple 100 yards away. But yeah, you could hear where it started, and you could feel it when it got to us where it ended, and that was definitely projected towards us. I think blowing that dog whistle, it wasn't, it didn't like it, and that's one thing I wanted to ask Walter if he wanted to take a dog whistle out there to try it, see what happens.
Probably not.
Yeah.
Well, that's funny you guys mentioned that. I bought a dog whistle yesterday at Cabela's, and I know the cats can hear it. I know the dogs can hear it. I'm debating whether I'm going to take it up in the woods to try it out.
Yeah, I'm I mean, I'm gonna try it again. You know, I've always ever since then. Matter of fact, I got rid of it, and I said I'm never taking this out there again. But I'm gonna go back out to that location and I want to try it just to see what happens.
Listen, man, I'm gonna stand right behind you.
Yeah, I was going to say, you know, if it could be a distress call of a younger Bigfoot, you might have the parents come roaring out there. Who knows?
I had a question for Will. I heard that somebody was telling me a story that usually the females challenge each other and the males let it go on for a while, and at the end they bow to each other. They don't attack each other, but they just yell at each other. At the end, when the male has had enough, he makes a yell, and then the females bow to each other.
Well, it's not just the male. It's the sub males also. Usually the alpha. We've had an account. There was somebody we interviewed a long time ago that actually heard two groups encounter each other, and there was a lot of, like you would expect with chimps, there was a lot of ruckus going on back and forth, and then finally, apparently the dominant alpha of the two groups roared, and then everything went silent, and the two groups passed each other quietly and peacefully.
Wow, it's amazing. And then not long ago, I asked Joe, "Hey Joe, do you have a place where I can go, and feel safe walking and hiking?" And he goes, "Yeah, go to this place." So I go over there with a friend, and we got there very early in the morning. I think it was like 7:30 in the morning, and we start walking in the forest. And my friend was vaping, and the top part of his vape, I think we walked about a quarter mile in. We weren't even all the way in yet, but we started walking in, and he had all this vape coming out of his mouth and nose, and the top came out and fell on the ground. And as soon as he bent over to grab it, they started throwing rocks and logs at us, and we couldn't see where it was coming from because there was so much dense foliage all around us that we couldn't see. It was just, and then I'm a small guy. I'm not that tall anyways.
See,
but
you guys went where they weren't.
Yeah. Well, you know what's funny?
I had to
was
put that
like,
in for Tom.
When he had told me about going out there, I said, you know what, go to this location. It's a nice location. You might get some tree knocks, you might get a whoop or something like that. I said, but they're real calm over there. I didn't know all this was going to happen to them.
Yeah, so they're throwing. And they did 3 mock charges at us, and I immediately put my hands up and I said, okay, it's your house. We're leaving. We get it. We get the message. And as we're walking out, they just kept throwing things, and you can hear it in the recording. I got a video of it, and I want to send it to you guys to see what you guys think.
Let me ask you, what do you mean mock charges? You saw them or heard them, or
we heard
details on that?
We as we were walking out, because at the beginning you felt like running, obviously. So I said to my friend, no, don't run, walk, because I don't want to trigger. Since we're still learning about these creatures, I don't know if they're gonna, if you run, if you're gonna activate some kind of hunting instinct in them. So I said, let's just walk, and as we're walking, you could hear him running from the left of us, and then you would turn around and look in that direction to, because he felt like it was an imminent charge, and then he would stop, and then you would hear it from the right side, and so you were just looking everywhere. It was scary.
Yeah, I get a text like 8 o'clock in the morning, 8:30 in the morning.
Yeah. I was so scared that I texted Joe, I'm being attacked.
And I was like, I'm just waking up because at that time I worked nights, and I heard my phone go off. So I looked and I saw Walter, and he said, "We're being attacked." And I'm like, "What do you mean you're being attacked? Where are you at?" It was kind of funny. But
So, what you guys walked out of there, I mean, how long did it take to get out? And did they pace you, in their aggressive?
They paced us to the edge. It took us probably about 5 minutes to get out of there because we were power walking, with our tails tucked in and just trying to stay as safe as we possibly could. And they paced us toward, I think, until the edge of the forest, and that was it. We left. We left. I talked to Joe because I had to get it out of my system, and I think I went home. We looked at the video, and we were trying to figure out which direction the rocks were coming from. And the first rock that was thrown at us, you can see it breaking the all in between all the plants. You can see the rock coming towards us. Then you hear the big thump, the big old log that they threw at us. And Joe's asked me, "Hey, did any of you fall?" I was like, "No, man, that was the freaking tree they threw at us." And
how big is this rock that they threw at you?
I don't think it's big. I think it would have been like an acorn size.
Okay, and then they're throwing branches at you.
Yeah. You can hear it very clearly in the video, and that's when Joe asked me, "Did one of you fall?" No, we didn't fall. Why? Because it sounds like something fell. And I said, "No, that's a log that was being thrown at us."
Yeah, then that's the following week is when we went camping out there, and we went out there. We put out some trail cams and we put out some recorders out there. Our trail cams went off, but there was nothing ever that we saw in the pictures. But they were definitely set off,
Yeah, that was weird. They kept being set off, but we couldn't find anything.
Yeah. And there are hogs out there. And what's funny is that we set our cameras kind of like in I guess like a 90-degree angle from each other. Yeah, but we didn't see anything on our pictures at all. But when we set the cameras out there and our recorders out there, and on the way out we're walking, we probably went in, I guess maybe a mile, at least that far, maybe mile and a quarter, I guess. But on the way out, not too far from where him and his buddy had their stuff thrown at us, at them, we heard two snaps in the woods, like something was walking on the ground and snapped some branches or some twigs on the ground. So we stopped and we're kind of looking at each other, and we take one step, and we took that one step, we heard it pop again, right? And they were like, "Holy shit!" So we just kind of stopped and we just kind of listened, and we didn't see anything else, and then we walked the rest of the way out. But yeah, that was pretty strange because we heard a pop and we kept walking and we looked at each other. Then we heard a pop again, and then that second pop we stopped. And as soon as we took one step, we heard a pop again, and then we stopped for about, I don't know, 5 minutes or so and just kind of checked everything out. Nothing ever came out.
Just to be clear, you knew that there's no other people out there. This isn't somebody walking out there pacing you guys. This is something else.
Yeah. There's no in that particular area, just like in Walter's area, I mean, there's no houses around there. If any other cars come down there, you're going to hear them or see them. Yes, and like where we parked, it's like a little area where people can park. They want to go hiking back there, but we were the only vehicles back there that morning or that evening because it was already the evening time when we went back there. And a lot of times when we go out into the woods and stuff, we try to get out there early enough to where we know nobody else is out there, because when we're cleaning up all the spider webs from the night before that morning.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, no, that's always a lot of fun getting into the spider webs.
Yeah. That's like my telltale sign if anyone's been around. If all the spider webs are gone, then someone's been walking through there,
Well, that's a very good point, actually. It's an excellent point. So going back to this tree, I'm just really intrigued with it. It is, as you said, this is not a force of nature that did this.
No.
This is something did this. What was there any? I don't know if you guys checked the grounds or anything on the ground that could have, like footprints or.
Well, the ground is too hard to even leave any any truck prints.
Right. And where that tree's at, it's actually quite a bit off the road. And even where that branch is broken, it's not on the road. And, back there, it's just so thick. And, the ground just so covered with leaf and, and everything else on there.
Yeah, I'm looking at it. It's pretty, just got a lot of growth and stuff on it. No good spots for footprints.
Right.
Did you guys get a chance to look at the tree and see if maybe there's some hair or anything like that? Any other possible evidence on the tree itself?
No, it's so hard to find hair out there in the woods like that. I do look, but it's. I mean, you got to be out there with a magnifying glass sometimes, because even on trees and bush and stuff like that, it's hard to see what's hair and what's just a tiny vine,
Mm-hmm. Well, it's just really interesting how this thing is twisted and then shoved down to the ground, and then kind of propped up or, shoved up against that other tree. How would that happen?
Exactly. I mean, when I saw it, I was thinking to myself, wait, I was just here with Joe, and I don't remember that being there. And just the destructive nature of the twist itself shows you that it took an external force to actually do that.
Yeah, and even, assuming, kids or people playing on that would not, it would take an incredible amount of force to do that.
Yeah, I just sent Will the pictures.
You sent them to me.
I sent them to you?
Yeah.
Oh, jeez. I'm more trying to send pictures to Will. Oh, I did. Okay, so.
Oh no, I got them.
Okay, you did. Okay, so the top part, that the picture I showed you, and then the second picture, the one on the ground is the one that belongs to the tree that's broken on the top, and the one that's actually leaning in the ground, leaning against the other tree, is the one that's stuck in the ground.
Right.
But I don't know if you want to send that to Tom.
Yeah, it's obvious. This is, the more you look at it, it's just like there's no wind or anything that caused that.
And like I said, that tree is probably a good 7-8 feet at where that, I'm gonna call it a sapling because it's not a full-grown tree. It's still kind of young, I guess, but it's maybe a good 4 inches thick, or just snapped off at. And then the one that's stuck in the ground, it's maybe, I don't know, 1.5 inches round, but it's a long, like I said, it's almost like a javelin, and it's stuck in the ground.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow. Well, listen, guys. Every time I hear from Will that Joe's got something and Walter's got something, we're real excited because you guys always get some really interesting stuff, and today is no exception. So,
yeah, we're gonna keep going out there. I want to go out there. If I can get out there this weekend, I'll get out there next weekend for sure.
Now, Joe, you run the JRG, which is the Jevning Research Group. Do you want to give people your contact info?
Yeah, if anyone has any input, any suggestions, any encounters you want to talk about, I'll certainly listen to them. Especially if you're here in Texas. I try my best to get out there and meet people. I think I've got a pretty good track record in doing that. My email is jrg.hillcountry@gmail.com, and shoot me an email, man. We'll get together, and like I said, I don't mind meeting anybody or driving. That's for sure. And Walter, I know is man, he jumped with both feet in on this thing, so I know he'll back me up, help me out too.
Absolutely.
All right, guys, great update, great information. Be careful when you go back out there.
Yeah, we will. Which we do try. We do try to be careful.
All right, fellas. Well, listen, we'll look forward to any updates you have, and
Thanks for listening to this episode of Creek Devil. If you or anyone you know has had an encounter with these creatures, please contact us at williamjevning@yahoo.com. That's William, Jevning, @yahoo.com. All communication is confidential. Join us for another program next week. And until then, keep your eyes open out there.